Hey everyone, welcome back to Liberal Breakdown. Today we have another wild story from the Trump administration. This time, it's about Trump going after major law firms that have represented or employed people he doesn't like. Yeah, you heard that right. The former president who loves talking about law and order
We have to bring back law and order.
is literally trying to punish law firms that had any connection to his political opponents. Let's break this down. So, late last week, two federal judges, both of whom, by the way, were appointed by George W. Bush, not some so-called radical leftist, blocked Trump's executive orders that were targeting Jenner and Block and WilmerHale. And why did Trump go after them? Because they employed lawyers who worked on the Mueller investigation. Yes, this is the level of pettiness we're dealing with. Judge John Bates ruled against Trump's attack on Jenner and Block, saying it was disturbing and troubling. Meanwhile, Judge Richard Leon went even further in his ruling against Trump's actions on WilmerHale, calling them retaliatory and a clear violation of constitutional rights. And let's be real, he's absolutely right. The First Amendment guarantees freedom of speech and legal advocacy, and Trump is literally trying to weaponize the government against his critics. Look, this isn't just about some lawyers in fancy suits. This is about the fundamental right to legal representation and the dangerous precedent Trump is trying to set. If presidents can start banning law firms from government work just because they represented someone the administration doesn't like, then we're heading into full-blown authoritarianism. And here's the real kicker. Some law firms are actually caving to Trump's demands.
Live picture there at the White House. I'm reading from the Wall Street Journal today. They report this. Two law firms filing lawsuits today to block White House executive orders that targeted them for their ties to lawyers involved in an investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election, while a third firm cut a deal to avoid being targeted by the Trump administration. I want to put this up. That firm, and you see it there, per the White House pool, Trump announcing a deal with Skadden Law Firm in which the firm will provide $100 million in pro bono work that the administration approves of. Trump saying, quote, this was essentially a settlement. The other two firms, Jenner and Block and WilmerHale, filing separate lawsuits in a D.C. federal court today, both alleging the administration engaged in unconstitutional retaliation that violates the First Amendment.
Paul Weiss, for example, agreed to drop its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies just to get Trump off their back. And Skadden Arps straight up agreed to $100 million in pro bono work for the administration. So Trump, who constantly claims to fight for the forgotten American, is now shaking down some of the most powerful legal institutions in the country to serve his own personal vendettas. And they're complying. The hypocrisy here is off the charts. Trump and his supporters love to scream about the weaponization of government whenever there's a legal case against him. But here he is, openly using government power to punish law firms that were connected to the Mueller investigation. If this isn't political persecution, I don't know what is. Not to mention, Trump's entire MAGA movement is based on the idea that the legal system is out to get him. But when the legal system actually protects people from his overreach, he throws a tantrum. I mean, come on. The dude literally spent his presidency whining about being treated unfairly, and now he's actively trying to strip legal protections from others. Let's be real. If Trump wins another term, this is just a preview of what's to come. He's already testing the waters on what he can get away with. Today, it's law firms. Tomorrow, it could be judges who rule against him. And then, journalists, political activists, everyday citizens. We're at a point where Trumpism is no longer just about far-right rhetoric. It's about actively dismantling the institutions that hold power accountable. If you still believe in democracy, in due process, in the idea that people should have the right to legal representation, then you should be terrified by what's happening here. This isn't a left vs right issue. This is about basic American freedoms, and I hope more people wake up before it's too late.
Have you ever seen a sustained effort by any presidential administration to go after these top dollar white shoe law firms like Skadden today? Skadden's, I believe, the world's biggest law firm, and a lot of these are very prominent. A lot of them, yes, have taken on work that has involved the former president, then candidate Trump, now President Trump here. Have you ever seen it?
Andrew, I've never seen anything like this. And I worked at a couple of these big law firms, O'Melveny and Myers and Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher, who were on opposite sides of Bush v. Gore. So this is something that we have never seen. And obviously, you have two different schools of thought. You have Perkins Coie, who was the first to fight back. And then you have Paul Weiss, who really entered into the first settlement, which may have made business sense, but they've been getting absolutely destroyed in the legal community for not fighting back.
Former federal prosecutor Niyama Ramani just went on Live Now from Fox with Andrew Kraft. And what he said about Trump's legal battles and the attack on major law firms is something we cannot ignore. So let's break this down. Andrew Kraft asked Romani straight up, have you ever seen such a sustained effort by any presidential administration to go after big law firms? And Romani, a guy who has worked at some of the biggest law firms in the country, said, and I quote, I've never seen anything like this. That's coming from someone who has been in the trenches of high-stakes litigation. This isn't just business as usual, this is something entirely different. Romani even went further, saying that these firms, some of the most respected in the industry, are getting absolutely destroyed in the legal community for not fighting back. Let's take a moment to understand what that means. We're talking about a full-scale legal assault against firms that have represented political opponents, firms that have stood for legal principles, firms that have done pro bono work defending civil liberties. And now they're being targeted for political retribution? That's not democracy. That's authoritarianism. Romani also mentioned something really telling. He said, we are on opposite sides of Bush, W. George. Now, why is that important? Because even under Bush, with all the controversies surrounding his administration, we never saw anything like this. There were disagreements, there were legal battles, but a sitting president didn't launch full-blown attacks against major law firms just for doing their jobs. This is new, and it's dangerous. The fact that legal professionals are being punished for representing clients or standing up against Trump's administration tells us one thing. Trump isn't interested in the rule of law. He's interested in weaponizing the law. This isn't about justice, it's about control. And the scariest part, it's working. Firms are being forced to make deals, change their policies, and bow to pressure. That is not how the legal system is supposed to work in a free society. So here's the big question. If we don't push back now, where does this end? Today, it's law firms. Tomorrow, it's journalists. Next, it's political opponents. This is why we have to stay informed, speak out, and support the institutions that are standing up to this abuse of power.
President Trump authorized the Justice and Homeland Security departments to seek sanctions against any law firms or lawyers performing abuses of the legal system. He's also targeted several high-profile firms over the last few weeks. 3 of them, each with hundreds of employees, have ties with people who have worked on cases against President Trump, represent high-profile Democrats, or employ former Democratic White House officials. Perkins Coie LLP, for example, represents former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and billionaire Democratic donor George Soros. In Trump's executive orders, he demands that security clearances be suspended for all 3 of these firms and that their federal contracts be suspended. For Perkins Coie LLP and another firm, Paul Weiss, their employees also faced severe restrictions on entering government buildings.
All right, after all the chaos, legal battles, and behind-the-scenes negotiations, we are down to just 2 law firms that are still standing their ground against Trump's aggressive executive orders. Jenner and Block and WilmerHale, these are the last firms refusing to bow down. Some of these firms folded under the pressure. Others, like Perkins Coie, took Trump to court and even managed to get key parts of his orders temporarily blocked. But now the battle lines are clear. Perkins Coie managed to slow things down, and Jenner and Block and WilmerHale have secured their own temporary restraining orders. Yet, these 2 firms are now the last ones left actively fighting Trump in court. And let's be real, Trump's strategy here is obvious. He's trying to send a message. If you oppose me, you'll pay the price. So what does this mean? This isn't just about law firms. It's about Trump sending a warning to any institution that dares to challenge him. And as it stands, only Jenner and Block and WilmerHale are still in the fight. The question is, how long can they hold out? If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Let's keep having these important conversations because democracy is not a guarantee. It's something we have to fight for every single day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.